So we just wrapped up a rather heated segment. So let's get into something a little bit more lighthearted, lighten the mood a bit with Trump's most recent Truth Social diatribe, as I think I called it in the last segment on these videos he releases. But he does these videos and he talks about some issue posted on Truth Social. We have the most recent one. And a part of it was him touching on his Freedom City idea that is so bizarre. And I want to talk about it. And then we'll look at more from this video as well. But this was the part where he touched on his Freedom City idea. This is about regulation. So you'll hear that's kind of the context of this. And again, we'll look at more from this in just a little bit. But first, take a look.
In addition, we will create an ultra-streamlined federal regulatory framework specifically for freedom cities, allowing them to be true frontiers for the return of U.S. manufacturing, the invention of new industries, the rebirth of economic opportunity, and safe and affordable living. Finally, I will require...
So there's him mentioning it, freedom cities. And I'll show you in a past video he did, him more extensively outlining this idea. It's so strange because... Actually, let me explain in just a second.
Almost 1/3 of the land mass of the United States is owned by the federal government, with just a very, very small portion of that land, just a fraction, 1/2 of 1%. Would you believe that? We should hold a contest to charter up to 10 new cities and award them to the best proposals for development. In other words, we'll actually build new cities in our country again. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination, and give hundreds of thousands of young people and other people, all hardworking families, a new shot at home ownership and it.
So that was the idea. And before we get to more from the first video I showed you, this idea, let's hold a contest. People can come up with ideas for new cities we're going to go create on federal land. And then what? They're going to become thriving cities because a bunch of people are going to move there. The process of a city becoming populated is a complex one. What brings people to a city? What keeps people in a city? All of that. And then people build a life there and there are jobs there. So why would we spend all this money on a city out in a place that's away from the lives of people, that doesn't have all the same variables that brought someone to the place they're currently in, whether it be family, whether it be a job, whether it be the nightlife, and waste a bunch of money on cities that will turn into the China ghost towns that the government funded for no purpose. Instead, how about crazy idea? We take the cities that we already have. We can call them Liberty cities, okay? But they're just the cities we already have. And we invest in those and we make those cities more vibrant with the proper investments. And we see how that goes. Because so many aspects of our current cities are underinvested in, whether it be public transportation or public education, or programs for those in poverty in those cities. And we know people already want to be there. Wait, why? Because they're there already. We just, boom, try to solve problems where people are at instead of creating new cities that likely people won't go to, asking them to move away from all of their career opportunities and, like I said, family, friends, etc., to live in a freedom city. It's not going to work. Oh, goodness. But with Trump, similar to how with his understanding of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, I've talked about it being this child's-like analysis, and he'll go, we didn't used to say the N-word. There's 2 N-words. We don't use one of them. That little bit he does. And he means nuclear. Similar to how that's his analysis, we didn't used to use the nuclear word and now we're using it. And that means Biden's bad, even though he's not explaining why Putin invading Ukraine and threatening nuclear action is Biden's fault. And he also doesn't explain how not supporting Ukraine makes peace more likely. But That's his analysis. Similar to this. Hey, it would be really cool. This is like poli-sci 101's, imagination. It'd be so cool if we had freedom cities and they were like epic and like cool. And then we could like have a contest to come up with who makes them. Totally. And the professor goes, or we could have cities that already exist and just invest in those and let the natural process, as they talk about so often, of supply and demand and different market forces and push and pull factors with why people are in different areas, determine where people want to live based on all those complex variables, where the industries are, and so much more, but allow the natural push and pull of the economic reality, the ups and downs, the left and rights, the forwards and backwards of our economy, determine where people end up living, and then invest and expand programs and all of that to make the lives of where people end up the best that they can be. But here's a little bit more from this video.
Cutting wasteful and job-killing regulations was a key part of my America First economic agenda that built the greatest economy in the history of the world. As I work to quickly save America from Joe Biden's economic disaster, and that's what it is, one of the great economic disasters of all time, I will restore my famously successful executive order requiring that for every one new regulation, 2 old regulations must be eliminated, and I will ask Congress to make it permanent.
So wise. I don't care what regulations they are, but just you make a new one, you cut 2 out. Or every time I do these segments, I feel like I have to talk like I'm talking to a child. Or we could make new regulations by themselves when they're good and take out other regulations when they're bad, but not just randomly, arbitrarily take out 2 every time we create one, because maybe there's a need for one, but we don't yet know necessarily if other regulations need to be rescinded. And what's fascinating is after the East Palestine, Ohio train derailment, the right said it's the left's fault because Pete Buttigieg didn't visit soon enough, or is Biden's fault because he's president. And then we dive in the details and we find out, oh, wait, if we had more regulation, as the Obama administration did, and then Trump rolled back, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Then after the bank, the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, we heard, oh, it's woke's fault. Why? Why? Because it is. And then we dive in the details. Wait, during the Trump administration, regulations were rolled back that could have made a difference here. And now the takeaway from that, from Trump, is more deregulation no matter what it is. If there's a need for regulation, we should have it. Just regulation isn't good or bad inherently. Now, oftentimes we need more of it because of the reality of different industries and how consumers will be hurt if we don't have the proper regulations. But it is so much more nuanced than just regulation bad, so take it away. Oh my goodness. What a world. That is a former president and the very likely nominee of one of the 2 major parties right there.